Hey guys, this is Dana, and this is the, official start of the Red Flags of a Codependent series. And this is video number one in that series, which is love bombing. So, if you're familiar at all with my Red Flags of a Narcissist series, and I'll link to it above here, that series went over the red flags of a narcissist or sociopath or psychopath or antisocial personality disordered person, kind of whatever name you want to call them. It went over problematic red flags of those problematic people or problematic behaviors of those people. Okay. This video series is going to go over the same red flags, but from the mindset and perspective of a codependent person. And so obviously, this is my perspective on things, and it's limited because it's my perspective. So hold on to what helps and let the rest go for sure. If you have a different perspective, or if you've noticed that these red flags have played out differently in your life and you're okay with sharing your experience, feel free to comment down below. So with that being said, there's three main points that I want to cover in this video. The first is, what is love bombing? The second is the two different types of people that get caught up in love bombing. And the third is the difference in the mindset and perception of love bombing from between a healthy, or what I like to call a quote unquote nourished person, and a codependent person. Because what's really wild is these two different types of people have very different perceptions of the same type of behavior. So I'm going to cover all that. So stay tuned for that. So let's just jump right into it. So, what is love bombing? Love bombing is a manipulation technique done by manipulative people, like I said, of any name you want to give them. Emotional manipulators, we'll just call them. It's a manipulation technique where this emotional manipulator bombs their target with love, meaning they're bombing them with constant communication and constant compliments. And the whole goal of love bombing is to kind of secure the target. It's to reel the person in to a whirlwind situation. And there's three main elements that tend to be always present, always present with love bombing. The first one is, like I said, that constant communication. So this is texts, this is phone calls, it could be Skyping or FaceTiming or Instagram or Facebook, and they are just in constant communication with their target. I'm talking like 6 or more hours a day. If this is an online dating scammer, so cults and online dating scammers and kind of scams in general also use love bombing. But online dating scammers, when they love bomb, they're most likely going to do a lot of phone and texting. They're probably not going to do the Skyping or the FaceTiming, because they're pretending to be a different person. But like a real life person that's doing love bombing, that you're find yourself dating or that you've met on through a dating site or what have you, if they start doing this love bombing, it's going to be they're wanting to spend a lot of time with you, they're wanting to see you, they're wanting to talk to you. And this just happens fast. I mean, I'm talking within days or so of first meeting them. The second main element of love bombing has to do with hinting or saying that you're soulmates, that they've never felt this way about you before, that kind of what you two have is special, unique, and different. Either they're saying that outright or they're implying it. And again, all of this happens within like the first week or so of knowing this person. The third element that tends to be present in love bombing is future faking. So this is where the manipulative person is going to be, they're going to be listening to their target while you're on the phone and texting and stuff for, 10 hours a day. They're gathering information about you and what kind of person you want and what you want in your life. And they are kind of this chameleon. And so they are changing into being exactly what you want or need them to be. So, for example, if your future involves, getting married and having children, then so that's what they want to. If your future involves taking in a bunch of shelter animals, then that's what they would love to do too. If you really want to have your own garden and raise alpacas, then they would be interested in doing that too. Like, it's very much the same. Whatever you want or need, they want or need. So, like with an online scam, let's say for the example, the person is even something extreme, like they are bedridden, right? Or they're really sick. They can't get around for whatever reason. The online scammer might say, you know what? I was raised to believe that you just take care of the person that you love, and that their future they would be okay with not doing anything other than taking care of this other person. These three elements of love bombing, this constant communication, the soulmate connection, the future faking, all lead up to this whirlwind situation. And whirlwind situations are never healthy. They never, ever, ever are healthy. And I know there's people out there that are like, but Dana, my grandparents knew from the very first date that they were going to get married. And they were, and then they were been married for 75 years. That is fantastic. It's still not healthy. Because healthy people, I'm not saying that everybody that does the whirlwind situation is necessarily a narcissist or a sociopath, but it's never healthy because it moves too quickly to where we're not thinking straight. So you might know on the very first date that I really think we're going to get married. That's great. But then you slow things down to where you prove, through trust, through honesty, through time of getting to know this person, you prove that idea correct, right? Because everything is easy to get into. It's a lot harder to get out of. And healthy people realize that. So, okay. With that said, there's two different types of people that tend to get caught up with love bombing. There's the people that out there that have what I call empty buckets, and then there's people that are codependent. The difference between the two is, see, codependency, this is my take on it. Codependency isn't the problem. Codependency is a symptom of the larger problem, which is empty buckets. So what do I mean? Well, we are all born into this life with three main buckets. We have the bucket of physical needs, the bucket of emotional needs, and then the bucket of stability, which is basically the reassurance that our other two buckets are going to be getting filled on a regular basis. So within our physical needs bucket, we have the basic physical needs like food, clothing, shelter, air, water, these kinds of things. Emotional needs, basic emotional needs, love, affection, attention, a feeling of importance or significance. And then again, stability is the reassurance that these other two buckets are going to get filled. These buckets are originally filled by our parents, or not filled, I should say, by our parents. And then as we get older, they're filled by friends or by religion or by, school or hobbies or extended family. These different spheres of influence that we have around us as we get older. If we're starting off in life with a bucket that's low or empty because it didn't get filled by our home life, by a parent, for whatever reason. And generally the reason is because we had a parent who was either physically and or emotionally unavailable for whatever reason. Either they were an addict or an alcoholic, or they worked all the time, or which makes them, physically not available, or they had their own personality disorder, or maybe they were mentally ill. So whatever it was, they were not able to was the whole thing with mental illness too. I'm talking about like uncontrolled mental illness to where they were so sick that they were not able to form a bond. I'm not talking about people that are, like bipolar and they're medicated and they're fine and they're able to function. So difference there. So if a person has a parent that wasn't able to effectively be there for them and meet their physical needs or emotional needs, they're going to start off with a low bucket in one of those areas. As they get older, if that low bucket is not filled, then that becomes a vulnerability. And so we're going to be seeking to get that bucket. This, of course, is all on like a subconscious basis, right? We're going to be seeking to get that bucket filled in a wide variety of ways. So, and here's the second part to empty buckets. This can also be, our buckets are continually filled and emptied throughout our life, right? So if a person's a child, right, and let's say they grow up with a parent who who maybe is an addict or an alcoholic, and they don't have that connection to their parent. The parent's always out at the bar, or when they're home, they're drunk. And the child grows up feeling very unloved and very unimportant. That need is never met. It's never addressed. Okay. So now as they get older, that becomes a vulnerability for them. And so when they come across somebody that does this love bombing, they are so starved out that this feeling of intense, love and affection and attention and importance, they are just eating it up because they are so starved out. So again, then the empty bucket can happen later on in life. So here's an example of that. So let's say, for example, a person they've been married for 30 years and their spouse dies. So now they're feeling incredibly lonely, right? And they come across a person who's love bombing them, who's meeting that need. They're giving them all this attention and affection and showering them, right? With all of this. They're going to be eating it up because they're starved out, because this person's making them feel less alone. So codependency later on in life, again, this is my theory on it, is where we have these empty buckets as a child. These empty buckets aren't filled. It becomes a vulnerability. Codependency is not the problem. It's the symptom of the larger problem, which is the empty buckets. If we can get the empty buckets resolved, then the codependency takes care of itself. Because codependency, it's a lot of very maladaptive behaviors, all with the intention of getting these very basic needs met. So those are the two main types, and we're going to be covering that in a lot more depth in this whole video series. So those are the two main people that get caught up with love bombing. Point number 3, the differences between how a healthy or a nourished person would interpret love bombing versus how a codependent person would. So a codependent person, when they are experiencing love bombing, here's some examples of what they might do. So they might find themselves getting caught up in the whirlwind. They're very quick to clear their schedule and make room for this new person. They become addicted to hearing this from this new person. They are totally open and excited about talking about marriage and combining accounts and meeting the children and getting caught up in this whirlwind situation. They are quick. This is very important. They're quick to gloss over red flags that they might be seeing from this other person. So odds are something feels off. It feels too good to be true. It feels rushed, but they're quick to gloss over this. And the reason that they're quick to gloss over it, I know from my experience, this is why I was quick to gloss over it, is because if I were to actually admit that I was experiencing problematic behavior and that there were issues with this other person, then that would mean that this relationship was problematic, which would mean that I would need to leave, right? But because I was starved out, I didn't want to leave. So it was easier for me to think, you know what, maybe I am just being too picky, or nobody's perfect, or I'm being too judgmental, or, right? It was easier for me to make it my issue than it was to actually make it the other person's issue, because I didn't want to leave. Because if I had made it their issue, that's not fixable, right? Because that's them and not me, and I can only change me. I can't change them. So that's a huge point. I hope that sinks in, because I think it's where a lot of us tend to go wrong in these types of situations. So when we start seeing red flags, we often tend to start hiding elements of this relationship from others. So we realize, okay, we are talking to this person a lot, like 10 hours a day, and we're late to work, and this is becoming really problematic. It's really happening fast. We're finding ourselves not talking to coworkers about it as much. We're minimizing how much we're talking to this other person. We're hiding elements of this relationship because we know deep down that this is problematic, and we don't want to admit it, because if we admit it, then other people are going to point it out too. But other people might already be pointing it out. And if that happens, then we're going to find ourselves being very defensive and telling ourselves, well, they don't understand, or maybe they're jealous, or what this person and I have is special, unique, and different. It comes along once in a lifetime, right? So as a side note, a lot of people often ask, or they mention wanting to warn the new partner of their ex. right? The new source of supply of their ex. And they want to know if they should do this. This is why that new person's not going to be able to hear you. If you try to warn them and say, this person's abusive, like, run, they're not going to believe you because they're caught up in this whirlwind situation. They're telling themselves, I have this amazing, unique, and special connection with this other person. He or she is a soulmate. I've never felt this way about anybody before. They are just bitter and jaded and crazy, right? And of course, it doesn't help, too, that the manipulative person is feeding that. And then they're telling this new partner that you are, in fact, bitter, jaded, crazy, an addict or an alcoholic or bipolar or any number of these things, to where they're not going, that it discredits you, right? And that's the whole goal, is for other people to not listen to you about their behavior. Okay, that was a side note. So back on track. So here is the difference between love bombing, how it feels to a person that has an empty bucket, or a codependent person. So if you have any degree of empty buckets, love bombing can feel like relief. It can feel like, I have finally met the perfect partner. Like, they are your soulmate. They are amazing. It feels like winning the lottery. It just is this amazing feeling. It feels refreshing. Like, there are no dating games. Like, this person is just so into you right off the bat. They know they're like 100%. You're exactly what I want. No questions asked. And you might even be finding yourself kind of thinking, like, they don't even really know that much about me, but they are sure, like, this, you are what I want. You are what they've been waiting for their whole life. It's like, it can feel like the fish just jumped in the boat. I mean, they are just certain that you guys belong together. It can feel healthy. It can feel like, this person is so attentive and affectionate, and this connection we have is amazing. This is, again, once in a lifetime kind of thing. This is how it should feel. This is how it is in the movies, right? Like, this is so amazing, and I am so fortunate. That's how it feels. It feels like a whirlwind. Things are moving too fast. And you might even be telling yourself, it's like a movie. This happens in romance, like romantic comedies, or like a romantic movie. I didn't realize this really happened in real life. I mean, it's just kind of this over the top situation, because it's not real. You can, again, feel addicted to them. Like, you're obsessively checking your phone. You're wanting to hear from them. It can feel concerning. Like, you know, like, this is moving too quickly. What are we doing? We're talking about getting married. I've known this person for 2 weeks. I need to kind of put the brakes on a little bit. But this concern, and it can feel very romantic, right? So this person, if a love bomber is really laying it on thick, they are going to be sending romantic emails. They're going to be, sending flowers. They are going to be, it's like they're thinking of you. At least that's how I interpreted it. Like, man, they are thinking of me. He is thinking of me like 24 hours a day. It is good morning texts. It is good night texts. It's, 400 texts in between those two texts. It's sending cute little video clips, like, thinking of you and what are your thoughts on this? And it's just, it feels so amazing. And like, you're just, like I said, you found this perfect partner for you. It can feel confusing. Like, this is too good to be true, especially with like online dating scams. If it's not an equal relationship, if there's a big difference, whether we're talking, money or appearance or health or age or social status, that's a problem. And because generally relationships that are that unequal, there's a reason that person who's way up here, it wants a person that's not unequal. And it's generally has to do with power and control. So at the same time, if it's the reverse, right? And so maybe you have a lot of money and they don't have a lot of money, or any type of like, huge inequality there, odds are that's probably why you're being targeted. So it's just good to kind of examine that, and examining your empty buckets and seeing if you have any. Because again, like, as we go through life, we're going to have different vulnerabilities at different points in our life. So, some examples of vulnerabilities could be not only like the death of a spouse, after being married for 30 years. It could be turning a certain age. I think a lot of people, I know for me, the when I was in my late 20s, that is an incredibly stressful period of time because everybody has this societal pressure to hurry up and find a partner and get married. And then in their late 20s, early 30s, lots of people are having babies. So again, if you're probably especially a woman, there's a lot of that feeling of pressure of I need to hurry up and find somebody. So, but birthdays that end in a 5 or a 0 can always be stressful. After divorce can be a vulnerability. Changing professions, you know, all different kinds of things can be a vulnerability for a person. So it's good to know kind of what's going on with yourself. That's just kind of self-awareness, and that's a big part of it. So back to this. Love bombing can feel tense or uncomfortable. If you're feeling like this is a whirlwind situation, I think we kind of need to slow things down. This is a little like, I don't know about this. You are probably not going to be comfortable sharing this with your partner. And if you do share it with this new person, they're probably going to be pushing you to keep this communication open. And they might even say, well, you know what? It's because, your ex was a narcissist or a manipulator, and I think you just have issues with him, and I'm different, and don't compare the situations. And or it's your job. I hear that a lot. Oh, well, you work in this field, and so you're just hyper vigilant about this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, I'm not. Like, I see it for what it is what it is. But but the thing there, the important part of that is the person's not going to respect your boundary. So they're going to spin it back around on you, which is not healthy and it's not okay. So at any given point in our life, we always need to maintain our power and control and maintain the speed of a relationship, a friendship, a what have you. That's healthy. That's normal. Okay. So, and a healthy, normal person would respect that and they would back off a little bit. But the hard part too is if you have an empty bucket, if you are codependent, if you're going through this love bombing, you're probably not going to want to slow down because you're so starved out and you are obsessively checking your phone and it feels so good that you want to keep moving full steam ahead. So that's hard. Okay. Introspection. So you might be feeling like, if it's him or her or you, it's the feeling of, is this healthy? Like, is this healthy or is this unhealthy? I can't tell the difference. If you can't tell the difference between a healthy and unhealthy relationship, odds are there's a problem, and odds are it's unhealthy. Because generally, when we're in a healthy dynamic, we don't have confusion. Like, confusion is always the first sign of abuse, and it's always the first sign of problematic behavior. So if there's confusion present, generally in a healthy situation, it's cleared up quickly, right? It's a misunderstanding. Something was like a little bit off track. Not a big deal. It's quickly remedied. In a problematic situation, especially in an abusive situation, that confusion, it lingers and it continues to grow. So healthy relationships, confusion gets cleared up really quickly and it's not an ongoing issue and it doesn't happen very often. In an unhealthy dynamic, confusion is always present and it tends to get worse and worse. And a great way to tell if you're experiencing confusion is if you find yourself wondering who has the problem here. Like, if you're confused as to why you're confused, that's problematic. And odds are you don't experience that in other relationships, right? Ask yourself, do I feel this way? Do I wonder if I have issues when I'm with friends or with dating other people? Odds are you don't. Odds are it's just with this other person. So if you find yourself justifying the behavior, your behavior or their behavior, telling yourself, well, yeah, maybe I'm confused because of my profession or because of my past or because maybe I have issues like with trust or with men or women or what have you. Those are kind of these three elements that tend to be present with problematic situations and abusive situations. It's confusion, introspection, justification, in that order. So watch out for those three things because those three signs are signs. It's big. Did you ever see the movie The Princess Bride? If you guys haven't seen it, like, you need to see it. Like, it's a fantastic movie. But there's this one scene in the movie where Wesley and Princess Buttercup are walking through the fire swamp, and they just get in there, and there's these sounds like this pop, 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 poof, and then this flame shoots up and it catches her dress on fire. And Wesley puts out the fire, and then they keep walking, and then they hear those sounds again, pop, 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 poof, and he moves her out of the way. Very much problematic situations work like that. So that pop, 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 poof is confusion, introspection, justification, problem. So if you can catch those pop, pop, pop before the flame shoots up, then you're good. Then you can move out of the way. Okay? So how do healthy or nourished people view love bombing? I think this is so interesting and so telling. So if a healthy or a nourished person comes across love bombing, they don't view it as relief. They don't view it as, oh, I finally have met the perfect person. They're probably going to view it as problematic from the get-go. And they're going to be thinking to themselves, I don't think this person's the perfect partner, but they're a highly problematic partner who seems to be really smothering, controlling, and who has no life. This person's not going to come across, this love bombing does not come across as refreshing, but also problematic. This other person, they're going to be thinking to themselves, this other person wants things to move too fast, and that is not a good thing. Like, this is a bad situation. They don't view this love bombing as healthy. They view it as immature. They'll think to themselves, this person is acting like a teenager in love. Like, we are grown adults, and I have known this person for 6 days. They're talking about how they love me. They're dropping hints about marriage. This person doesn't even know me. Like, they don't even know me well enough to love me, let alone want to marry me. It comes across as very, very strange, very bizarre, definitely not healthy. They don't get caught up in a whirlwind situation. If the other person starts trying to do the whirlwind thing, they hold their boundary and they choose the pace of the relationship. So they're going to go slow and steady. And if the other person starts saying, like, oh, I want to hear from you in the morning and at night, and I'm going to be texting and calling you just around the clock, they're going to put a stop to that early on and say, you know what, I have to work in the morning. And so I don't take phone calls after 9 o'clock. Like, I turn my phone off, and I don't turn my phone back on until 6:30 in the morning. And they have boundaries. They don't, turn their lives inside out trying to accommodate this other person. They're not, because they're not starved out. They're nourished. So it's a lot easier for them to make healthy decisions because they're not starved out. So because they're not starved out, there's not that addicted feeling. That addicted feeling comes from kind of this attitude of scarcity, and that attitude of scarcity of, like, this person is my end all be all. This happens when we're starved out. And if we're nourished, then we realize, like, we have this attitude of abundance. Like, there's plenty of fish in the sea, and, there's not this idea that this is the person, the relationship. So it's easier for them to walk away from a problematic situation because they're not thinking that this is like their only shot at marriage or at, a relationship. They aren't tense or uncomfortable. So if things aren't going well, they are assertive. And they say, hey, you know what? I think we're talking too much, or this isn't working for me, or we need to way slow down. And manipulative people, because manipulative people tend to be all about power and control, they're not going to like this. And so once they realize that they can't get power and control over this other person, this other person's going to have boundaries, they're going to be assertive, and they're not going to get guilted or manipulated into letting the manipulative person take control, then the problematic person is going to walk away from that situation. A healthy person, a nourished person, doesn't wonder if it's them that has the problem, at least not for long. So they might, if they do kind of, get caught up in this, it's not going to last for very long. Like, it'll be like less, probably within the first week, they're going to realize this is just off. This is just bizarre and not healthy. they're not going to wonder if it's them, if they have issues, if they did something wrong, if maybe they need to lighten up. They're not going to be internalizing all of this problematic behavior that they're experiencing, thinking that they need to change. Because a healthy person, again, has that attitude of abundance. They're okay with thinking, if this relationship doesn't work out, I'm sure there's going to be another one. And if this doesn't work out, because especially if this person's problematic, then there is no relationship here anyhow. It's it's problematic. It's a problematic situation. It's not a healthy relationship. So they're able to differentiate between the two. If there is clear confusion present, which there would be if they're still in it after like a week or so, and they're feeling like things are too good to be true or something's off, they're going to work towards gaining clarity and whatever that might mean for them. So maybe it's probably going to mean slowing things down, but it's going to also be slowing things down, emotionally distancing themselves to the point where they can see things more clearly and proceeding with caution. So if things aren't adding up, they're going to be trying to seek out additional information to see what exactly is really going on here because they value clarity. And they're not going to be defensive about other people and how other people view their relationship because, for one, they're going to trust their own judgment. They're going to trust in their decisions. And they're not going to be in a situation where this problematic person that they're doing things that they're not comfortable doing. They're going to have those boundaries to say, you know what, I don't have time. Like, I don't have time to talk to you on the phone for 2 or 3 hours or texting you nonstop, because they are nourished. And part of being nourished is having hobbies and friends and doing a lot of things to fill those emotional buckets on a regular basis. Whether it's online or offline or both, they're doing these things. They're not making this new person their whole life. And that's what a lot of us, myself included, tend to do with love bombing with problematic people. And so just as an aside too, real quick, this is why a lot of codependent people, we have a hard time dating other people, like quote unquote normal people, right? So a lot of people, after they get out of a relationship with a narcissist, they feel like every other person they date, that situation or that person just feels flat, that there's just not that emotional connection there. And it's because they're still starved out in some way. So if you can fill your emotional bucket, then you're not going to need that love bombing in order to have that connection with that other person. Does that make sense? So if the only reason that you're attracted to this emotional manipulator is really has to do with that love bombing. That's what we're addicted to. We're not addicted to the problematic person. We're addicted to the way that they made us feel. So if you can figure out what feelings they were making you feel, what positive emotions you were feeling from that, and then figure out healthy, nourishing ways to fill that bucket, then you're going to not crave them as much. And you're going to make healthier decisions. You're going to be thinking more clearly. So if you do start dating again, you're going to be able to appreciate healthy, nourished people because you yourself are healthy and nourished. And you're going to see the love bombing as the problematic behavior that it really is. Because again, healthy person, right away when they start experiencing it, they know, they're like, this is really wild, and they tend to not get caught up in it. So love bombing is a huge concept. It's probably the most important red flag. It's the one that surfaces first, generally speaking, and it's the one that if we can see it for what it is, we have the greatest chance of actually avoiding this whole problematic situation because we're not emotionally involved yet. But like I said, this happens fast. So your window of time is minimal to try to avoid love bombing. So it's really important that you just slow things down, don't get caught up in the whirlwind, and pace yourself. Don't make this person the icing on the cake. Don't make them the whole cake. Because if you do that, if you keep them as a really fantastic addition to your life and not your whole life, then it's much easier to get them out of your life if they're not your whole life, and it's much easier to think clearly and to see things clearly. So that's the end of red flag number 1. I promise they won't all be this long. Thank you for staying with me this whole time. I'll be curious to see what you guys have to say about it, so comment down below. And as always, lots of love to you guys. You guys are not alone, you are not crazy, and you really can heal and move forward from this. So take care, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, bye.